Hello, people. Um, there is another development, there is another fallout as a result of the murder of George Floyd by that killer cop. I hate to say the name of the cop, because to me it means nothing to me. Um, the Nascar, they decided to remove the Confederate flag from all their buildings, and every activity that they do, they decided to remove the Confederate flag. And I think that's a welcome decision, because blacks in America know what Confederate flag stands for. You know, during the Civil War, the North wanted the part of the reason for the Civil War was to free the slaves. The North want the slaves to be free, but the knuckleheads heads in the South think that blacks are their property, and they didn't want to give up their property, and that was part of the reason for the Civil War. Um, the flag for the South, the Confederate flag, that was the flag they were using during the war. They were beaten very well. That's why U.S. is still the way it is now, in one piece. Anyway, when I was still on active duty as a parole and probation officer, if I come to your house and there is a Confederate flag, I will hesitate before I go into the property or knock on the door. Sometimes I just walk away, you know, because 90% of the time when you see that Confederate flag, you know that there's problem, you know. And when I was on active duty, I've seen a few of them. They are not common, They are not common, but we still have some knuckleheads flying it. I used to supervise in Montgomery County, and sometimes when I go deep into the woods, I see people with these flags, and I just kind of stay back, you know. Well, let me give you one more story about um, about racism in America. You know, I came to the U.S. in '74, and around that time was when one of my friends also arrived in the U.S. I think he came in '74 or '75, but anyway, he was living in D.C. He was staying with his brother, and he was in the U.S. for about three months, and he had a date. So he asked his brother to loan him his, I think it was Fiat X19. It's a very small car, very, very small. And his brother said, look, if you get into an accident, make sure you call the cops. All right? So he said, yes. Okay. On the way to pick up his date, he he stopped by at 7-Eleven to pick up some cigarettes. That was when the incident happened. You know, I was just, the incident happened 74 or 75, 3 months of his arrival in the US. And he was relating the story to me in 2019. You know, I went home for a visit, and we were just chilling in his big mansion. Has a fountain in his living room. Glass here, glass there, everything. You know, guy's doing very well. So we was just talking. Somehow we started to talk about race and discrimination, and he told me the incident. And When he came out of 7-Eleven, some guy was just getting ready to park and the guy hit the car. So he did what his brother told him. He called the cops. The guy who hit him also called the cops. The guy was a white guy. So when the cop came, the first thing he did, this was in Prince George's County, in Maryland, Prince George's County, Maryland. And first thing the officer did was to go to the white guy, talk to the white guy. Then my friend said he came to him. He said, if you don't move your motherfucking car right now, I'm going to lock you up. If you don't move it right now, I'm going to lock you up. And you should have been there when he was telling me this story. He felt like it was happening right there in 2019. His eyes was bulging, all his muscles were up, all his veins were showing, and he was trembling. And I just kind of like slipped into something else. So we moved on. So if you think that racism doesn't hurt, it does. You should have seen this guy. And I'm telling you, we are in our 60s now. If I stayed with the discussion a few more minutes, God knows what would have happened. So the guy just told him, if you don't move your motherfucking car right now, I'm gonna lock your ass up. And he said he was shaking. He said he was shaking. He didn't know what to do. He said he was shaking. So he got in the car and left. You know. So if you think that racism doesn't hurt, it hurts. I used to be a correction officer. I used to be a correction officer at Maryland House of Correction. And there is this big guy, this big black guy, always coming. Anytime I'm on duty, he will be talking to me. Most of the time, he will be talking about white people, and he has so much hatred for white people. Every time the same thing will telling me about white people. So one day I was forced to say, hey, come on, man. Not all white people are racist. Why do you dislike them so much? And he looked to his left, he looked to his right, he moved a little to me and said to me, I'll tell you what happened to me when I was a child. Okay, what happened to him was that when he was a child of like 9 years old, he and his mom went to Baltimore City, downtown Baltimore City. I guess in those days, downtown Baltimore City was mostly white. Even up till now, the shops, the businesses are mostly white. So he said that he had to pee, he had to urinate. And his mom went from store to store asking them, could you please let my little boy use your bathroom? And the answer is always no. Please, could you let my little boy use your bathroom? And the answer is always no. He said he stood out there in the cold, and Christmas sometimes is cold, and the colder you are, the more you're likely to want to pee. So he said he stood out there in public and had to pee on himself. He had to pee on himself. That's why he hate white people so much. So I'm not the kind that would dwell on it and say, okay, because they did that, blah 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 blah. Don't always use racism as a crutch. As bad as apartheid was in South Africa, as bad as apartheid was in South Africa, there were black millionaires. You know, even before blacks were freed in America, there were black millionaires. So if there is a way, you look for a way. You don't use racism to be a crutch. That, oh well, I'm like this. Like most of the inner city high schools, people don't want to be there because they believe that, oh, they don't teach them very well. Oh well, they don't pump money there like white schools. Yeah, that is true. But look around. There are doctors, engineers, lawyers, businessmen that came out of that same school. As bad as it is. I used to drive cab. I've told my wife this story several times. I used to drive cab when I was going to college. And I was on Broad Street. This is Baltimore. I was on Broad Street. This guy, impeccably dressed, was at the corner and he waved me down. I stopped. He jumped in the cab. He pulled out a small notebook and he wrote something that I don't know, maybe date and time he got in my cab or whatever. And then he looked at the corner of his eyes. He told me to look at those guys at the corner. I looked. He said he went to high school with them. He said when he was going to high school, they were making fun of him. They were saying, oh, you want to be like white people. Oh, you want to be like white people. And people still say, when I came to America in 1974, I still heard few people say it. So it's what you make of it. In those same ghettos, there are lawyers, engineers, whatever coming out of it. Regardless of Mayor Schmuck. Mayor Schmuck, I think, was the second black mayor in Baltimore. His wife is a dentist, I believe. And they interviewed the wife. Like I said, every black person in America has a racist story that they can tell you. And I have plenty of them. And they asked this lady, did you ever experience racism? He said yes. When she was in high school in that Baltimore city, she took chemistry from a white lady, and she tried all her best. She knew she was just going to get an A. No matter what, she was going to get an A. In the end, she got a B. So she approached the lady and said, hey, I believe I'm entitled to an A. And the white lady told her straight up, I don't give black people A's. I don't give black people A's. So that's the kind of situation that blacks are faced with here. But she went ahead and became a dentist. So in fact, I believe that she had her first child while she was in high school. She still went ahead and became a dentist. So you can always say white people did it. Let white people do their things. Like I said, and I'll say it again because it's very important. Not all white people are racist. The only bad part is that being white, they enjoy the privilege of being white. That's all. But not all white people are racist. Anyway, I'll catch up with you in a little while. All right. Have a blessed day. Bye.